The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar on synthetic fuels, what they are and why we need them. This webinar is sponsored by Shell. My name is Giles Parkinson. I'm the editor of Climate Spectator and I'll be your moderator today. And we are going to be joined by two CSIRO research scientists and experts in this area, Dr. Burke and Dr. Valerie Sage. Now, while we're just waiting for people to join us, I'm just going to run through a few housekeeping items. You will get a link of this recording of this live session tomorrow, so don't feel that you need to take copious notes and you have more time to ask questions. To ask a question, you use the webinar control panel and you type one in. There is no audio available for the audience. So you type one in, we get to see them, and then we answer as many as we can. And what's been particularly exciting is that we've had lots of questions in our previous webinars. So look, we are going to get started. As I said, today our panelists are Dr. Valerie Sage. She's the research project leader in gas processing and conversion at the CSIRO. Nick Burke is the group leader of the same team at the CSIRO. And we're going to try something a bit different today. We're just going to try a little video. So hopefully it works and that everybody has the speed of their computer and the processing to see it. But let's see how we go. And I'm going to hand over now to Dr. Valerie Sage. Welcome.
Thanks, Giles. Hi, everybody. I'm Valerie Sage, and thanks for attending this webinar on synthetic fuel today. So I'm from CSIRO, and as you might know, CSIRO is Australia's national science organization and conduct applied research focused primarily on delivering benefit to the Australian society and industry. So in my presentation today, I will give you an overview about synthetic fuel, what they are and how they are made, and try to demonstrate to you their potential in Australia as an alternative future fuel. I will then briefly talk about the research we are doing at CSIRO on producing synthetic fuel. At the moment, we are essentially focusing on synthetic fuel being made from natural gas, which relates to some extent to the picture you can see on this first slide, where natural gas constituted mostly of methane here at the top. Sorry, previous slide. Okay, and yeah, so methane goes through a chemical process represented by the funnel here to produce liquid products. Next slide. To start with, what are synthetic fuel, also referred to as syn fuel, and in my presentation I will either use syn fuel or synthetic fuel to describe them. So basically, synthetic fuel are fuels that are produced from resources other than crude oil, feedstocks such as natural gas, biomass, and coal. And now on the next slide. So Australia is a country rich in resources. In addition to uranium, iron ore, gold, or diamonds, there is quite large amount of coal, brown coal and black coal, but also gas. So using those feedstock for producing fuel could secure Australia fuel and energy need for the medium-term future. Also, natural gas represents only 7% of the energy sources. Its share in energy production is much greater, currently representing about 22% of the energy production source, and that figure is expected to rise to more than 30% by 2030. And with only 1% of its resources as oil, Australia managed to currently meet about 45% of its transport fuel requirements through indigenous oil production and condensates. So based on 2007 figure, Australia has enough reserve of oil for approximately 4 years of consumption at the current rate of about 900,000 barrels per day, if it was to provide for the whole demand of fuel. However, local crude oil production is steadily declining since 2000, and the proportion of import fuel versus local supply will keep increasing. But there is always a potential for new oil discovery here in Australia. Next. So on the next slide, I'll describe why synthetic fuel are important in the Australian context. With the objective of producing 5% of the energy in Australia from renewable resources by 2020, it will still need to rely heavily on fossil fuel for the production of transport fuel for the short and medium future. However, we most likely need to diversify the feedstock we are using with probably less reliance on oil and a better use of natural gas. Australia has quite a very unique situation with an abundance of coal and gas resources and a lack of oil. So to address Australia's specific issue, specific and individual solutions need to be envisaged to ensure Australia has enough supply of fuel for a sustainable future. And on the next slide, to emphasize this potential and future opportunity, I'd like to show you a modeling of some sources of transport fuel for the coming 4 decades than CSIRO performed back in 2008, the result of which you can see here. So this model suggests that the proportion of diesel from crude oil, shown here in green, as a transport fuel will decrease as a portion of as the production and supply decreases. And as you can see on the next highlight, I'll just wait till it's highlighted here. This will be compensated by a synthetic fuel, which will contribute significantly to transport fuel use in the coming decades, from mostly natural gas, but also, and to a lower extent and for a shorter period of time, from coal. In the methane, the proportion of petrol shown here in dark blue will also decrease to be replaced by ethanol blend here shown in light blue and gray. It's worth noting though from these graphs that except as ethanol in a petrol blend, biodiesel is not projected to have a big impact in Australia, and this can be explained in part by agricultural limitation. Despite huge land availability in Australia, most of it cannot be cultivated, and Australia has also limited water resources, especially in the most populated areas. So water is a precious commodity, and growing crop from biodiesel production might not therefore be a priority. And in addition, you can see here that there is only a relative small increase in the use of electricity and hydrogen for hybrid car, for example, and those energy sources might not going to be a mainstream option in the near future. I'd like to mention at this stage that this scenario is only one of the possible one, and things might change and evolve in the future. Next slide, please. So the reason for the increased importance of natural gas as an energy source is that in addition to large coal resources, Australia has also an abundance of natural gas compared to other countries. With a total at the moment of about 164 trillion cubic feet, or TCF, as shown here on this graph, available at the moment as traditional typical gas resources, which are also called conventional gas resources. As of 2010, non-conventional resources, which is mostly coal seam gas, represented about 15 trillion cubic feet. Australia has therefore a large potential for synthetic fuel production from natural gas. And at the current rate of about 1.7 TCF per year, there's about 63 years of natural gas remaining in Australia. If we were to switch to transport fuel uniquely derived from natural gas while at the same time continuing the current rate of production of natural gas for other purposes, the reserves are estimated to last for about 53 years. And as you can see from this map, around 96% of Australia's conventional gas production today is sourced from 3 petroleum basins. The Gippsland Basin in Victoria, the Cooper-Eromanga Basin in Central Australia, and the Carnarvon Basin in Northwest. Two basins, they are located far away from populated area, and this makes it difficult to use this gas for domestic usage, as the construction of pipeline is expensive. So at the moment, most of this gas is currently exported as LNG to the Asia-Pacific region, especially the gas from the Carnarvon Basin. So on the next slide, I'll just explain to you what are the driver and benefit of syn fuel. So as I've explained before, there is a prediction that syn fuel from gas that are made through a gas to liquid or GTL process could play a key role in Australia's future fuel supply. And the reason behind that are economic, strategic, environmental, but also market-based. Economically, with the increase in crude oil price and a decrease in local oil production, using local gas resources does make sense. And by using those local and abundant resources to produce transport fuel, Australia will also improve its security of supply in transport fuel and move toward more self-reliance, producing fuel from its own resources and having to rely less on importing oil from other countries. It will also help with the monetization of unconventional gas resources such as coal seam gas. In addition, the synfuel produced from coal, gas or biomass, they are completely compatible with the existing infrastructure, from the distribution and delivery network to the storage unit, and they can be used in existing diesel engine without any modification required to those engines. It is therefore a better cost-effective fuel than LNG, for example, which require different infrastructure and engine modification. It does make sense to use them as transport fuel without the need to change the distribution infrastructure to modify the fleet. In addition, those fuels have also some environmental benefit compared to conventional oil refinery issue fuel in terms of local emission. They are cleaner and of higher quality with less particle and are virtually sulfur and aromatic free. So it translates in better performance in the engine and less emission when burning a diesel engine, releasing less greenhouse gas per kilometers compared to standard fuel. There is also the potential of transforming associate gas, which is natural gas that can be found in a typical oil reservoir, into synthetic fuel, which can be then mixed directly with the oil stream, thus reducing or suppressing the need for flaring or reinjection of the associate gas. And from a market point of view, it is believed that crude oil price of about $80 to $100 per barrel, and if the price of gas is low enough, synthetic gas production from natural gas is cost competitive with current crude oil refining technology. And the implementation of small plants would also allow better use of stranded and associate gas reserve. And to suit the Australian market, it's been estimated that plant below 20,000 barrels per day will be the best solution. So now I'd like to show you a short video that explains how synthetic fuel are made. So just bear with us here. That's apparently the first time that a video is shown there. So hopefully it will work. And as there's no sound, that video originally has sound, but there's no sound, so I'll have to do the voiceover. And let's see if it starts. Okay, so there are generally two steps involved in the gas to liquid or GTL process. In the first step, natural gas, which is mostly made of methane, react with water and oxygen, and sometimes in the presence of a catalyst. This reaction produces syngas, a mixture of hydrogen and carbon monoxide, and the syngas can then be transformed by a catalytic reaction called Fischer-Tropsch to produce a mixture of hydrocarbon. This mixture is then further processed to make synthetic fuels such as diesel, petrol, and jet fuel, and other valuable products such as lubricant and waxes. So the full video can be viewed from our website, and at the end of the presentation you can see the address for that website. So I'd like to go back to the presentation. So I've described before the benefit of synfuel regarding energy security, compatibility, or environmental benefits. And now I'd like to describe to you some challenges that are associated with the implementation and operation of synfuel facility in Australia's GTL plant. First of all, as I mentioned before, the location of the gas resources away from the market and distribution grid can be quite a challenge. However, this creates some opportunity for the development of local implementation And as certain amount of resources in Australia are stranded or small, there is also opportunity for small to medium scale transportable plants. LNG projects are currently favored over GTL projects in Australia because the technology for LNG production is to some extent a market for the LNG product can be guaranteed for long enough to make a return on the capital investment. The export revenue for this process is also a tremendous driver. Australia is in a very good location to target the Asia-Pacific market with less competition from the Middle East, which target more the European and US market. And long-term contract and price adjustment based on oil has also more commercial appeal. For GTL project, gas price can also be fixed for many years. However, the product of GTL are subject to global market fluctuation and are direct competitor with those of crude oil refining. From an economic standpoint, GTL processes must be competitive with LNG and crude oil, or there must be a niche requirement for GTL technology. So the lack of demand in Australia for high-performance diesel produced with the GTL process is also a factor for the absence of GTL plant in Australia. So it is worth mentioning, though, that although LNG is a liquid form of natural gas, it's only a physical change of state, being natural gas liquefied at low temperature, and the end product will still be gas. Whereas on the other hand, through the GTL process, natural gas is chemically transformed into liquid and will stay in this form, making its transport much more convenient. So in view of all those potential for improvement of the GTL technology and also Australia gas resources, CSIRO is conducting research on gas processing in general and gas to liquid in particular, with a mandate to provide technologies that will enable coal and gas-derived low-emission transport fuel to reduce significantly Australia's reliance on import oil for transportation. This will help with the development of stranded, associated, and offshore gas reserves, and one of the main objectives is to minimize capital and operating costs of such process in order to improve their commercial viability. Reducing the GTL plant footprint will also help in that way, and the type and location of resources in Australia make it an ideal candidate for the development of modular transportable plants suitable for small operation. Improvement of the process itself as well to reduce greenhouse gas emission and improve process efficiency is also a major objective of our group research. And this will lead to better selectivity and simplification of the product upgrade process. And conducting research in this area will help promote the development of capability, not only applicable to gas processing, but also to coal and biomass processing for transport fuel and other chemical production. So on the next slide, thank you. So at the moment, with a research facility in Australia, and in view of the potential of such technology and the challenge ahead, it is very important to build capability, and which is one of the purposes of CSIRO gas processing research. We have recently built and commissioned a new gas processing facility in Perth, the first of its kind in Australia, and is a facility that is flexible in terms of feedstock, operating parameter, and can be utilized for various gas conversion processes or even liquid conversion processes. This facility has some advantage compared to standard research facility in that it can be operated unmanned 24/7 for a very long period of time. And for processes like gas to liquid, and in particular the Fischer-Tropsch reaction, this is a very important feature, as that reaction generally tends to take a long time to reach steady state. So it is therefore important to be able to run for a long period of time to produce industrially significant result, which is one of the aims of the research we are conducting here at CSIRO. And with that, I would like to thank you all for your attention, and I think now we go back to Giles for some questions.
Look, thanks very much for that, Valerie, and that was pretty interesting. I hope the video worked for as many people as possible, but that was a really good overview. We do have some questions already filed. If you do want to ask them, you just simply type it onto your control panel and hit send, and we'll get to as many as we can. So We have not just Valerie, but we also have Nick Burke here who will be helping us out with the questions, and I'm just going to go through in chronological order, so here we go. First question is, how do you see waste plastic to oil technology moving forward? Any thoughts on that?
Nick Burke here. I'd say waste plastics to transport fuels it's already a viable technology, but it would make up a fairly small niche application and would add to the mix, a bit like what the gas to liquids and other feedstocks to liquids sort of technology would make up in the short to medium term. I can't see that it's ever going to have the available feedstock to make up large percentages of our transport fuel needs, but certainly it's something that can be added into the mix in the short to medium term.
Okay. Here's another question, and it goes to the one about cost, which I guess I was pretty interested in as well. What is the current cash cost or break-even cost for this fuel? I mean, is it cheaper than current fuels, or will it be cheaper? Can it be cheaper?
Yeah, Valerie says here. Some market analysis and some modeling, they have shown that gas to liquid is commercially viable if the price of a barrel of refined petrol is about $80 to $100 per barrel. So that's about the same price that we're looking at for gas to liquid here. That about the cost of a barrel in the gas to liquid process. But with technology improvement, this cost is expected to go down.
Just further on that, Giles, I was going to say there are already plants existing that perform the process of converting natural gas into liquid fuels. A couple of very large plants in Qatar in the Middle East, one in Malaysia and another one in South Africa. So this technology is already in operation commercially, but there are other at the moment more attractive commercial options for the use of natural gas, and in Australia that one, as Valerie said in the presentation, that one tends to be LNG production, so liquefied natural gas production from natural gas. And the objectives, one of the objectives of the CSIRO research is to make the gas to liquids technology more commercially competitive with crude oil production and with LNG production in order to give it that commercial advantage.
Okay. Now, we've got a couple of questions too about the emissions, so I might just try and sort of synthesize a couple of these questions. Does the conversion of coal and or gas to synthetic fuels generate significant amounts of CO2, particularly in terms of carbon tax implications? And also, how does it fit in with Australia's long-term target of reducing emissions by 80%? I guess the question is there, I mean, how much less emissions do you get from this than you do from other sources?
Okay, so in terms of emission, at the moment, the gas to liquid process is believed to be about, if you take the whole process into account, it's believed to be about in par with the standard refinery process, whereas for coal to liquid, obviously the emission is much higher, with about 20% higher emission than a standard refinery. However, with further research, technology improvement, and carbon capture and sequestration, in terms of emission for the refinery process, for the gas to liquid process, it is believed that it will go lower than a standard refinery process. So the whole gas to liquid process will emit less than the standard refinery process from crude oil.
And just to add to that, Giles, in order to meet the 80% reduction in CO2 emissions, all refinery operations, whether they be from oil, coal, or natural gas, would need to have some sort of carbon capture and storage option associated with them, because none of these are carbon dioxide emission free or even low carbon dioxide emission relative to emission-free sources, so that they, in order to meet that long-term target of 80% reduction, we'd either need to produce less energy or fuel from these sources, or have an associated carbon capture and storage option.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's get on to the next question. Why is most of the synthetic fuel growth expected from natural gas and not coal, given that coal reserves are much more significant than gas?
Yeah, I've touched on that as well. It relates to my previous answer. So yeah, Australia has a lot of coal, but in terms of emission, making synthetic fuel from coal will produce a higher proportion of greenhouse gas because obviously coal is more rich in carbon than natural gas, and there's a good balance of carbon and hydrogen that need to be in the feedstock to produce less greenhouse gas emission. So the technology improvement to the process will also benefit the coal-to-liquid process, obviously, but the proportion of greenhouse gas emission that this process produces will still be higher than the gas-to-liquid, so more greenhouse gas will have to be captured and stored if it was to go through that route.
Okay, okay. And another one here which sort of goes to the same question but slightly different. Although Australia has large reserves of natural gas, it is my understanding that most of these are committed for export and are not available for domestic usage. Is that a problem for your projections?
Given that there aren't any commercial facilities available in Australia at the moment, it's not a problem in the very short term. Obviously, if a gas to liquids project was to get up, it would need to secure access to gas over the medium to long term. I'm talking probably 10 to 25 years in order to make it viable. Australia has the gas reserves in place. It's just a matter of being able to produce at a given production rate for that period of time. So the fact that currently most of the production, the large-scale production, is either tied up with the domestic market or is tagged for export as LNG isn't a problem. And if you look at the timeframes for implementing something like a gas to liquids plant, it's not something that can be done overnight. It's going to take a minimum of 5 years, I would think, to get technology up like this. If it was agreed tomorrow, it would probably take about 5 years to get up. So that's not really a problem.
And yeah, to add on that, yeah, GTL and LNG shouldn't be seen as competitive technology or as a competitor for gas resources. There are two technologies that are quite compatible. They can go together and are quite compatible.
Okay, okay. Next question. Can the panel elaborate on the changes required to a standard diesel engine to operate on synthetic fuel?
You go.
There is basically no change on a car engine required to operate on synthetic fuel. The synthetic fuel or diesel produced through the gas to liquid process, or even the biomass to liquid or coal to liquid process, are exactly the same characteristics than diesel produced out of refinery. And on addition of that, they are much cleaner as well. They contain less particulate, no sulfur, no aromatics, so they are considered premium diesel, and they will burn much cleanly in a diesel engine. But otherwise, all the other characteristics are the same than refinery diesel, so they can be used without modification.
Okay, okay. Anything to add there, Nick?
Oh, only that often diesel doesn't contain enough aromatic compounds in order to make seals and things like that in the fuel delivery system work effectively. This is the case with refinery diesel as well. So anything that needs to be added into refinery diesel or oil-based diesel would be similar or the same for gas-based diesel.
Okay, okay. Another question: would it be possible to use landfill gas instead of creating syngas from natural gas feedstock?
Yes, you can use landfill gas. Landfill gas is basically just methane or another type of natural gas. So you still need to create syngas from the methane and then convert that into synthetic fuels. The process is the same. It's just that the source of the gas is different. So that's something that you can do.
Okay. And just a supplementary question to that, does the CSIRO have any plan for direct conversion of fuels, removing the syngas production?
Yes, we're actually doing some research work into that at the moment. So this wasn't the subject of the presentation today. We're concentrating more on the conversion of syngas into synfuels, but CSIRO does have research efforts looking at direct conversion of methane or natural gas straight into synthetic fuels.
Okay. Question here about your sort of long-term forecasts and the reserves. 50, 60 years is not a long time. What happens after that, or when supplies start to run out?
Well, just one thing to add there. The figure I give of 53 years, if it was natural gas to supply the whole of the transport need, and 53 years as well at the moment is with the current gas resources, and gas resources basically keep on increasing every year. There's new discovery made every year, so it is expected that the gas resources in Australia will increase, both in terms of conventional gas resources, but also non-conventional gas resources with coal seam gas being found more and more. And on the other hand as well, so there's 53 years here of gas, but there is also development and there is research being done on other sources of fuel. So it is expected that natural gas won't provide all the energy need for those 53 years. So other resources will be used, and other fuel, alternative fuel as well, will be used in the future with new research on those different alternative fuels such as hydrogen or even DME.
Okay. Here's a question. What challenges are there for commercial distribution, and what effects do syngas have on truck engines, if any?
That's pretty much, I guess, that's similar to the answer about the difference between gas-derived diesel and oil-derived diesel. There's not much effect on the actual engines, and it's pretty much, as they say, a drop-in type of fuel. You can just add it in, or you can even use it as a blend stock with oil-derived diesel fuels. The distribution networks are the same as what you would have with oil-based fuels. So you can use road tankers and similar sea transport as you would for oil-based refined fuels.
Okay. And we've got another question. Someone efficiency. They ask, how will the fuel efficiency of synthetic fuels compare to current petrol and diesel efficiency in vehicles? Now, I know that you touched on that before, but they're probably looking for a bit more information on that.
That's related to how we explained it before, with those synthetic diesel, synthetic fuel being cleaner and with less impurity, less sulfur than refinery fuel. So I don't have exact figure to give you here, but they produce less emission from the engine, like the engine exhaust using synthetic fuel will have a lower rate of greenhouse gas emission and particulate emission than using standard diesel. And in terms of efficiency as well, this fuel are of greater quality. They have a higher C10 number, so that means they will burn much more efficiently in a car engine. So they have a better efficiency. You would go further with 1 liter of diesel, of synthetic diesel will get you further than 1 liter of refinery diesel.
Okay. And somebody else wants to put you on the spot about your future operating capital cost reductions. I mean, you did mention they were coming, that they would likely come down. Is there a target in dollars per barrel terms, and how steep or flat will the cost curve be in the future?
That's a difficult question for technology people like us to answer, Giles. That's more of an economics question, and it's one that has a lot of factors that influence it. 10 years ago, it was thought that the break-even price for GTL to be viable was about $25 a barrel, with a capital cost of $25 per barrel per day of a plant. And when the price of oil went up, so did the break-even price of GTL fuels, because associated costs like labour and the cost for capex construction and the materials also went up. So it's difficult, and I would say we don't have a really good handle on what the break-even cost would be. But what we can do is make processes more efficient, which is what our research endeavours to achieve, and then we can pull the whole framework of the cost for GTL fuels down, and then it can be seen in a slightly different light relative to oil based fuels. But we're also looking at niche applications here. So our research being applicable in the mega scale types of LNG facilities where you're producing lots and lots of gas, and you need to use all that gas in one particular application. It's more of an application where you can use it in areas that you wouldn't otherwise utilize the natural gas for LNG. So when Valerie said LNG and GTL are actually not competitors, that's because we would see them as not competing for the same gas resource. LNG might look at the mega gas resource, and GTL looks at the smaller scale one where you might be producing 1,000 to 20,000 barrels equivalent of oil a day, whereas the LNG looks at the much larger scale production.
Okay. Well, that's good that you've actually managed to answer a few other questions that were lined up there, so that's good. Another one here, is it possible to make low emissions syn fuels for aviation? It suggested that this could be a key area going forward.
Yes, it is. They're very similar fuels, and one of the things that the work being conducted by the SynCap facility is trying to show is that you can actually maximize the production of diesel or jet fuel types of components. So there has actually been test flights done by I don't know which airline it was. Shell and
Airbus.
Oh, okay, right. Shell and Airbus have done a test flight where they've used synthetic fuel from natural gas to run one of the engines on an Airbus commercial aircraft.
Okay. There's actually a related question here. It says, did you know that the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter requires FT fuel, and that this requirement could create the strategic imperative for Australia's first FT plant?
It doesn't actually require FT fuel, but the makers of the Joint Strike Fighter are looking at FT fuel as something that can drive the Joint Strike Fighter. Yeah, and it could be a way to get in for Australia to get into the synthetic fuels production. So yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. And yeah, in the US as well, a lot of the synthetic fuel production research as well is driven by the Department of Defense that want to use those synthetic fuel in their jets as well.
Indeed. In fact, it seems driving a lot of these innovations looking to needs in the future. One question here is how much synthetic diesel has the CSIRO made to date?
It's not. It's not doesn't amount in terms of barrel because yeah, we are a research facility. So to date, we've been operating the plant for about 10 months now, and we've made a few liters. We're operating in we're not operating in a production line, so we're not producing barrel per day, but we've been operating 24/7 for a long period of time, and each time we're producing, let's say we're producing about maybe 100 mils of synthetic fuel a day. So because we are looking more at investigating the process itself, so we're working on smaller scale, but we can upgrade our output. We've got 2 rigs, 2 operating rigs here, one that will come online very soon that will allow us to work on much bigger volumes. So yeah, just to the research we are doing, it is on a research scale. It's not on a pilot plant scale where we're producing thousands of liters a day or barrels a day.
Okay. Now here's a question that obviously comes from a bit of a boffin. You are concentrating on Fischer-Tropsch technology for GTL. Are you also considering methanol and MTG, methanol to gasoline? But more relevant to Australia is MOGD, methanol to olefins and distillate. Methanol can be readily made from biomass as well as from natural gas. I've no idea whether that's true or makes sense, but can you answer that?
Yeah, we haven't actually started working in the methanol to other products or fuels line yet, but that's something that we've been considering. Obviously, you can only stretch your research effort so far. It's definitely something that's attractive, both from our completeness of research perspective, but also from the perspective of whoever put that question forward, that methanol can be made quite readily from biomass, as was stated. So it's another one of these general purpose types of chemicals that you can transform into a whole lot of other things. And it's something that we have the capability to investigate, and we'd like to make ourselves some time to do that in the future. So it's definitely on our agenda. It's just a matter of kickstarting the effort.
Okay, okay. Another question about costs here. In the costs that you present, isn't it dependent on feedstock costs or?
Yeah, yes, it is dependent on feedstock costs. There's virtually nothing that's not interdependent in this equation. The feedstock costs determine, as well as the capital costs and labour costs and the overall operating costs and production costs. They're all interdependent. So. Feedstock cost and feedstock cost is probably one of the most critical aspects to the overall cost of the process.
Right. I've got 2 questions here about a commercial company which has been doing GTL Link Energy. Now, I don't know whether you're comfortable about talking what they're doing. There's 2 questions here which actually seem to oppose the assumption of the other. One is that Link Energy, well, it's an assumption that Link Energy can produce GTL via UCG for $30 a barrel. How does this compare with your assumptions? And then somebody else suggests that if GTL has such a promising future, why have they walked away from it? So I'm not too sure if you're aware of what Link Energy is or is not doing and at what cost. So if you'd like to answer it, fine. If not, we can move to the next one.
Yeah, on Link Energy, basically, the synfuel they are producing is using coal as feedstock. So actually, they're doing more coal to liquid processes. They're doing underground coal gasification, and then from the syngas they get from underground coal gasification, then they're doing a Fischer-Tropsch process to produce synfuel. As of the costs they are claiming, that I couldn't comment on those. It's very hard to get figure from Link Energy I've found in the past, but sorry, I cannot comment on the costs they are claiming for their synfuel.
Okay. Another technical one. Where does the energy required to transform CH4 into liquid fuel comes from? Or does it come from the CH4 itself? Or does it have to be provided from external sources?
It usually comes from the methane. You burn part of the natural gas to get the energy required for the process.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, the process, as I explained in the video, it's a two-step process. So generally, in the first part, it's an endothermic reaction in that it needs some energy, whereas the second process is an exothermic reaction in that it produces energy. So with the full implementation of the process, some of the energy produced on the second step could be used to drive the first step.
Yeah, and CSIRO has also been looking at ways to reduce the energy of that first step by using different chemical processes, different conversion processes that are less endothermic or even slightly exothermic, and driving the process that way. But the process as described in the animation requires energy input, and that largely comes from combustion of part of the fuel that's used for the rest of the process.
Okay. Okay. Right. Okay. A lot of these questions, I'm just going through them now. We've actually answered a lot of them. We're asking questions about costs and efficiency gains, and I think we've more or less addressed those. There's one final one here. You will produce a range of products. How are you going to optimize the selection of the target product over time?
Okay, so that is exactly the research we are doing here in Perth with our new syncat facility. So at the moment I cannot go into too much detail of that because it's commercial, and there is some commercial issue. But basically, yeah, we are trying to modify the process to improve the selectivity towards the diesel fraction and liquid fraction, so product like diesel and jet fuel. So that is the research we are doing, increasing the selectivity of the process itself, because the whole process produces a wide range of products, and a lot of those, especially the heavy hand, need to be further processed through hydrocracking to produce liquid product like diesel. So we are looking at way of improving the selectivity towards liquid and fuel fractions.
Okay, okay. Excellent. Well, look, thank you very much for that. Look, is there anything that you guys want to sort of say in wrapping up, in sort of looking to the future, or your next big challenge?
Yeah, no, I think that's been covered. Like, yeah, it's actually the last question was quite a good conclusion that, yes, the research we are doing at the moment is to improve the selectivity of the process, targeting more transport fuel products. So that's one of the big challenges of the gas to liquid process, is its selectivity, and also we've touched it through the question as well, to improve the emission and energy efficiency of the process.
Something I'd just like to say in wrap. This isn't a golden bullet, this particular technology. The future of the energy and transport fuels mix is going to be quite diverse, I think. This is just one of the elements that's going to make up a larger and more diverse picture. So I would say to the audience, don't anticipate natural gas derived transport fuels, or even other feedstock transport fuels, to be making up 100% of the transport fuel mix into the future. There'll be elements of natural gas derived transport fuels, as well as probably coal and biomass and oil into the future. So I think the transport fuel mix will change as the CSIRO scenario predicted, but things can change as well. But there won't be a single solution to the issue of supplying transport fuels to Australia. It's going to be a mix of things.
And I'm just going to throw one more question in just at the end of that, because it just occurred to me as you were speaking about it, about the transport mix. There's a lot of comment about electric vehicles and their potential and to source energy off the electricity grid. Does that mean that sort of the fuels that you're looking to develop are in sort of competition with EVs, or will there always be some sort of niche which the EVs just won't be able to get to?
Well, electric vehicles won't be able to power commercial jet aircraft, for example, in the foreseeable future anyway. So electric vehicles
presumably not trucks either.
No, that's right. So long-range transport vehicles probably won't be able to be filled by powered by electric power sources in the foreseeable, in the short to medium term. So what we've got here is something that can fill that gap in the short to medium term. Maybe in the longer term, electrified vehicles and transport will evolve to a point where it can power a lot more of our transport requirements. But in the short to medium term, for long-range transport particularly, and probably for more medium-range transport, it'll be based on hydrogen combustion engines, at least partly.
Okay. So you're guaranteed a niche there anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Look, thank you very much, Nick, and thank you very much, Valerie, for joining us today. Nick Burke and Valerie Sage from the CSIRO. We thank them for their contribution, the presentation, and for answering your questions. We thank Shell for their sponsorship for the event. We thank you for attending and being involved and answering lots of questions. I hope I got to all the questions. There are a lot of questions which are sort of quite similar, slightly different phrase, but so I didn't want to repeat too much. But I hope we answered as much as we can of what you're asking us. Once again, thanks for attending. Please give us some feedback. There will be a link to the webinar sent out tomorrow, and hopefully the webinar will be on the website and the presentation as well sometime shortly in the future. I think our next webinar is in about a month's time. We'll be letting you know about that, and thanks very much for attending. Bye-bye.